kei, shaken sho, bunten men kyosho. If anybody can speak Japanese, tell me what that means because I've been saying it for years. Writing fast versus writing well. Hi, fellow happy writers. My name is Vivien Reis, and I want to help you write, publish, and market your novel. Today, we're talking quantity versus quality, or quality versus quantity. In other words, the faster you write, oftentimes, the poorer the quality. So how do you strike a balance? Fast drafting can be rough. It's where you see all of the problems piling up, but you can't really stop and do anything about them. It hurts a little bit. Now that NaNoWriMo has wrapped up, and you've likely had time to reflect on how things went, I wanted to talk about some things I've learned about writing quality words and talk about what that means for each one of you. So I'm going over 4 things for you to consider when you're on that mad dash to finish your draft or post mad dash. Number 1, what's your writing pace? Each one of us writes at a different pace. Each one of us writes at a different pace with each subsequent novel we write. We may draft faster or slower the more novels that we write, and our quality may decrease or increase as a result. Stay true to your own writing pace. If you feel more comfortable writing 500 words an hour because you know they'll be fairly clean words, ones that you won't have to edit as much, then go with that pace. If you know that if you don't get the bulk of words down fast, you won't ever finish your novel, then fast draft everything. Not really sure which one you prefer? Well, then. Number 2, experiment. You won't reach that perfect balance right off the bat. Tweak your process with each book you write until you find a good pace that suits you. I threw caution to the wind and ultra fast drafted portions of The Elysian Prophecy, and while the quality was still good, it wasn't great. And I did the same thing for parts of Tep 2, and I wish that I kind of hadn't. Now, I know based on my own experiences that fast drafting at a moderate pace, which sounds weird, works well for me. For the time being, that may change. So I can still draft on my microphone with Dragon Dictation, but I know that if I just word vomit too much, it's going to be a mess to sort through later. Slowing down may also give you more time to be a little more creative. I can stop and think of better ways to say what I want to say without putting it off to the editing phase when I'm going to have to do that a million times already. Experiment until you find the balance that works for you. Yes, this takes time and it's kind of annoying because it comes with practice, but periodically evaluate how things are going at the pace you're currently at. See if it's a pace that you like. Number 3, how many books have you written? This is important to consider when trying to find a balance because a new writer likely won't write like a seasoned writer. It's just totally fact. I would highly recommend new writers fast draft, especially those that have been stuck on chapter 4 for over a year, like most of us start out. Once you have an outline, or not if you prefer to pants, write by the seat of your pants. Writing quickly trains you to silence your inner editor. You know, that little goblin that slaps your wrist the second it sees a sentence it doesn't like, and then you spend an hour trying to find the perfect phrasing for that one sentence. If you're trying to write an entire novel, that doesn't really help you get past chapter 4. You're never gonna get past it. If you're a more seasoned writer, you may already have a decent amount of practice keeping that ugly little goblin in check. Your goblin muscle is stronger. You may be able to slow down. I took that metaphor way too far. You may be able to slow down your pace and produce more quality work while still making it to the end of your novel, which is where you want to be. Number 4, have you ever pushed yourself before? There's a glass ceiling to how much someone can write. Anyone. That may be 500 words a day for someone, and it may be 10,000 for another. But how do you really know where that glass ceiling is if you've never really pushed yourself? This goes farther than the goblin muscle that I was just talking about. This is about writerly confidence. Before I started Nano in 2015, I never thought that I was going to be able to write 50,000 words in 30 days, but I did. I pushed myself and I felt so proud and amazed that I broke my own glass ceiling. In essence, I set a new personal record. Breaking down that first barrier feels amazing. So think about it. When have you pushed yourself in your writing? If this was your first time around with Nano, don't be disheartened if you just fell short. If physically writing that much was an impossibility, 50,000 words, it's a random number that folks at NaNoWriMo chose. But did you beat your own personal record? That's the important thing. If you did, then celebrate. You don't have to win Nano to set a new record and win something for yourself. It's hard not to compare yourself to others, but the more you write, the easier it gets. I can write far more now than I ever dreamed possible 3 years ago, but then I encroach on the poor quality limit and I have to reel myself back in. So to find those limits, you need to push yourself. And once you find them, you'll have a better idea of how you can strike that balance. You won't know the balance unless you find those limits. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Before you compare yourself to others, think of where you are in your own journey and realize that what works for one person will not work for every single person. Comparisonitis is hard to deal with in any creative outlet, writing particularly. Even though someone may say that they wrote 50,000 words in 3 days, you'll likely never know the quality of that first draft. So don't compare yourself. Stay in your lane and use these items I talked about to help you stay in your lane. Comment down below your favorite way to keep these creative blinders on. We all need them. With that being said, make sure to check out my brand new course, Dreamer to Doer, which launched today. This course is all about the first steps of finishing and publishing your novel, which are making the time and having the focus and motivation to write your book. The link to the product page is down below. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you've already checked it out, subscribe to this channel because I post new writing videos every Wednesday, and I'd appreciate so much if you gave this video a thumbs up because it does make a difference and it helps support my channel. I'll see you next week where I'll be talking all about healthy habits to increase your productivity. If you're traveling for the holidays, safe travels. Hope you have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you then. Happy writing!